All right. Let's start standing today. And just a thing for those of you listening at home that I just started recording for the recorded classes, sometimes the sound is not going to be great, so make sure your computer's all the way up. Once it goes through the recording, the quality is taken down a notch. I apologize for that. I might try to get some wireless headphones to help with that. But we're actually going to start standing today. So starting with your feet about hip distance apart. And you can sort of walk around on a little bit. Just try to sort of find some even footing. So maybe you let a little bit of your weight towards your toes, then you let a little bit of weight towards your heels, and just sort of find the space in between that feels good. And you can do the same thing sort of left to right. Seeing if you can get the weight in both feet to be even, and then the weight to be fairly even from front to back and left to right in each foot. And then from there, if it feels comfortable to you, you can close your eyes. And if not, just find something to sort of lightly gaze at. Pushing the feet down, lifting the head up. Not lifting the chin, just the top of the head. Think of you a little marionette puppet. Somebody is pulling your head up. Stand up straight. And then from there, just really starting to take our attention to our feet first. Taking your attention to your feet, noticing what you can. Maybe today they feel more sensational than other days. Maybe bringing your attention to your feet causes you to have a bit of a sway to the body. There's no right or wrong things to notice, we're just starting to notice. And then from there, you may start to draw your attention up through the legs. Noticing if the muscles are engaged or if they're relaxed. Again, no right or wrong answer, just sort of noticing. And maybe in that attention, you notice something that you're not happy. You know, you're like, oh, I'm sort of really engaging my thighs, and I didn't mean to. So then you can let it loose. Or I'm really not engaging that and it's starting to hurt, so maybe I shouldn't engage it. Bringing your attention up through your thighs, through the hips. Maybe bringing your attention to your belly. And even noticing how the inhales and exhales affect the belly. Maybe bringing your attention to your low back, your mid back, your rib cage. Noticing how the inhales and exhales affect those spaces. Maybe bringing attention to the backs of your shoulders, the tops of your shoulders and upper back. And for me, just bringing attention there immediately allows me to release something that maybe I wasn't sure I was holding on to. The chest, collarbone area. Again, noticing how the inhales and exhales affect these spaces. Taking your attention up through your neck, the jaw, the top of the head. And then as soon as that attention is there, seeing if you can re-bring your attention back down the body. So it's like a scan from the top of the head to the feet, and from the feet to the head. Almost like a wave of energy or attention. Like Think of those scanning machines, the light going across the body. And back up. Just becoming very aware of the sensations in your body in this space, in this moment, in this time, so that you can become grounded here. And from here, just setting an intention. You can bring your hands to your heart. Setting an intention to keep checking back in with the body and allowing the body to tell you when you've gone too far or if you can go farther. That often means the breath will change. That could mean that your thoughts are changing, or you might notice some thoughts that you don't want or some thoughts that you do want. But letting today the body sort of be the driver of how much effort you put in, when you do and do not come out of spaces, shapes, and allowing the body to be the thing that helps ground you into this space this time. We're giving yourself a little mental break from everything else going on in the world, in your mind, in your life. Not so that you can ignore it and pretend it's not happening, but so that you can take a step back to refresh yourself, replenish yourself, and be able to go back into your life with the ability to serve others. From here, if you have any intentions for a person, a place, a situation in need, it's a good time to remind yourself of those. Remind yourself that you are doing this practice so that you can bring something into your life that basically makes you a better person, whether that be comfort or some sort of qualities or characteristics that you cultivate so that you can give to others. Exhale and move the hands down. Bring the eyes open. You can shake it out a little bit, move around a little bit. Pushing the feet down. So the feet are still hip width distance. Squeeze those thighs to the bone, lift the chest. Finding a nice strong sinus to the heat. If you weren't there, if you're just kind of standing, see what it would feel like to engage. Squeezing the thighs to the bone, lifting the chest, pushing the back of the head back and out. And then from here, inhale both arms up. Palms are going to face each other. We're going to reach through our fingertips. So even if the shoulders go up next to the ears, that's okay. We're just really trying to get these long sideways. And then from there, exhale, fold forward. You can put a super deep bend into the knees. The feet can go even wider if they felt more comfortable that way. And let the head hold. Finding a bend in the knees, letting the belly rest upon the thighs, finding sort of this rounding in the back, just zaning over here. You could grab opposite elbows if that feels more comfortable to you. And then on an inhale, you're going to unwind the arms, bring the hands to the shins, pull your chest forward, halfway lift. So you're thinking about getting long in the spine, pulling your chest forward. Keep your chin tucked slightly so you're not leading with your chin. You're letting it rest, pulling the head forward. And then exhale, fold back in. Push the feet down. Push the thighs to the bone. Inhale, flat back and arms carry you all the way up to standing. If rolling feels better, roll. Exhale, press the arms down. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold. We're going to make this a little faster. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, folds. Inhale, come up to standing. And exhale, press the arms down. One more of those gentle vinyasas, bringing the arms up. And exhale, folding. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold in. And inhale, come to standing. Exhale, press arms down. Great job. We're gonna try something new today. We haven't done this in a while for the gentle class. If you have a block or a very sturdy book or just something that is sturdy, we're gonna stand on it. If you have a blanket or a towel and you wanna challenge yourself, you'll stand on that. If you don't have any of those things and or you don't wanna challenge yourself with the blanket, it is a balancing challenge, just to tell you, then you just don't put anything down and you just use your foot on the ground. What the block does, or something, it can even be like an inch thick, half inch thick, it honestly doesn't matter, because what happens is you're gonna put your right foot on it, and make sure your foot is pointed forward, so your toes are pointed forward. When we stand on this, our body thinks we're on the Eiffel Tower, and we don't wanna fall off. So your muscles in your foot and ankle, they activate. So even if you're just a few inches off the ground, a half inch off the ground even, your body's gonna be like, uh-oh, what's going on? What's happening? And it activates for you. Now that said, it may not fully activate. You might still have some balance issues, but you're probably gonna feel your feet and ankles a little bit more than. So we're gonna stand on whatever you've got. Or your foot's just on the ground and you're gonna put a little bit more weight into it. Your left toes, I'm having my right foot on the block. Your other toes can stay on the ground to give you a second point of contact, or you lift them up. And you're just pushing into this foot. So I like to keep my hands on my hips. We're gonna do some hip stuff, and this kind of shows you what your hips are doing and also helps you balance. So if you don't want to stare at me, you just stare at something that's not moving in front of you, and that'll help with your balance a little bit. So we're gonna plug and push into our hips. So we're trying not to bend this knee, the standing leg. We're gonna plug in, taking the right hip, pushing it in, letting the left hip drop. And then we'll push into the right foot, lift the left hip up. Drop, and lift. We're just gonna do that a couple times. Maybe your toes find the ground, maybe they don't. Maybe they split the whole time. Just moving the hips. Whee! And then we'll return to center. And then from here, we're gonna take this right knee. And I want everyone to be really careful. If you have knee problems, this is actually strengthening the muscles around the knee, but you don't wanna go too far, right? There's this fine line. So we're gonna look down at our toes if we can. This is where you might wanna keep that other foot on the ground, and it's completely fine. You're gonna look down towards your toes, and you're gonna start to bend into your right knee, and see if your right knee, or the knee that's standing on the block, can go toward the middle toe. So that means it doesn't come into the midline, doesn't go away, just going straight towards the middle toe. And it might be the tiniest bend, and then straighten. You might not even actually bend, you just might think about it. It might even be this teeny tiny micro bend. We're gonna do 5 of those. So bending the knee and straighten. Bending and straighten. You feel like this is very easy, I don't feel anything, and you're also balancing. Then maybe you take your knee a little bit farther forward and up. Our knees, when we go upstairs and stuff, they do go past our toes. But if that causes pain, we don't need to keep causing pain. We just need to strengthen around a little bit. After your 5th one, you're going to step off and you're going to shake it off. You might even roll your ankle around a little bit. Roll your toes around a little bit. And then we'll switch sides. This is not easy, by the way. If you are ready for a challenge and you step on something soft, that actually causes you to be a little bit less balanced because there's not something to push into you. So you could do this on a blanket or something if you wanted a little bit more challenge. Not into that this morning. So left toes on something hard for me. And then when you step up, your body's like, I'm gonna stay balanced, even though you're not gonna fall and hurt yourself. Left toes can stay, your right toes can stay down if they need to. And first, we're just going to start with those hip hikes. So you're pushing down, letting that left hip pull up into the body, and the right hip, same thing. And then push away. And push down. And away. Letting that hip sort of plug in and push away, just moving the hips. All right, and then you'll return to center, and we'll do the bend in the knee. So you'll bend into the left knee and then straighten. Bending and straightening. If you want a little bit more, maybe you go past the knee a little bit more. That right leg might need to come back a little bit for you to do that. Or it's just sort of this micro bend, and that's cool too. That actually really activates my side butt area. So the side of my thighs. And then straighten and step off. And shake out. Great job. Just a little balance work I wanted to do this morning. So if you have a block, just sort of push it to the side, or whatever you're standing on, push it to the side, coming back to the top of your practice space. Feet hip width apart. From here, we're going to take a big step back with our left foot, so our right foot will stay forward. And the left toes are going to point in slightly, right toes point out. Inhale your arms to T and have your body face the left. From there, push your feet down. Lift your chest up. Take your right hand as far out to the right as it will go with the arm parallel to the ground, taking your right hip back as far as it'll go. Coming into triangle pose. The left hand can rest on the left hip. The right hand is going to come down to the shin, the knee, wherever the hand can find. What we're not looking for, we're not looking around it. So we're not looking for this rounded shape just so we can reach our ankle. Think more, pull your chest forward, your hand just falls wherever your hand falls. And maybe your left arm goes up towards the ceiling. And then you pull your chest forward and push your left fingers towards the wall. See what happens? This is the difference between me not pulling up with my arm. Watch what happens when I pull up with my arm. See that alignment that happened in my chest? And it's not about how I look, it's just you can see that my shoulders are stacking a little bit more, that I'm engaged a little bit more. You can look up towards your hand if it feels okay on your neck, or toward the ground, or just straight forward. Use this left hand, I'm making it shake here, to pull yourself up, and exhale, step back forward. You're going to take a couple steps with me. And then from there, you're going to step your right foot back. Right toes point in slightly. Make them point in to the point that your knee doesn't feel any pain, and it feels like your hip is able to move a little bit. Left toes point forward, straight forward, and you can even have a little bend in that front knee. It doesn't have to stay perfectly straight. Turn your body to the right, bring your arms to a T, and then send your left hip back as your left arm moves way out. When you're like, okay, that's as far as it goes. The hand just drops down. We're not trying to reach for anything. Right hand can stay on the hip the whole time. Pull your chest forward and open up to the right. Pull the crown of the head forward. If your right hand's on your right hip, push that hand down to maybe help create some alignment. Maybe it reaches up and maybe you reach up toward the ceiling. Take 2 more breaths here, pushing the feet down, looking down to the ground. If you're not already, use that top arm to pull you up and step forward. Samasthiti. Great job. We're going to some hard stuff immediately today. So now our hips are probably a little bit more open, our legs are a little bit more open. To get down to the ground today, we are going to do a little bit of planking. It's going to be great. You guys are going to love it. I think we've been doing a little bit of planks. We're just going to hold it a little longer right now. And we're going to do a little down dog. All right, so from here, come back to Samasthiti and push your feet down, standing up nice and tall. Inhale, lift your arms up. And exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Pull the chest forward. Keep that chest forward motion as you bend your knees and step back, coming into a plank pose. Hands under the shoulders, toes under the wrists. Knees can be down, but they're not under the hips. They're slightly behind them. Push the hands down, pull the chest forward, pull the head forward, pull the lower ribs and hips towards each other. Push your toes down. For another 3, yeah, we're holding it. 2, and 1. So the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Or puppy pose with your knees down and your arms extended. Or child's pose, your hips back towards your heels. All 3 of those options are meant to help you get a longer spine. So don't worry about your legs being bent. Don't worry how high your heels are off the ground. Push from your palms, your hips up or back. So that you can have this space between the shoulders and the hips. Rather than doing all those vinyasas, all we're going to do is inhale, come back into a plank. So bringing your shoulders over your wrist, toes over the ankles. Again, knees can be down, that's fine. Pulling your chest forward so you're not rounding in the upper back, but pulling your lower ribs and hips towards each other so you're not arching in the back either. For 3, 2, and 1. Sending the hips back, or if you're in that puppy pose, you can walk your hands forward. Stretching from the shoulders, the hips high. Pressing the palms down, letting the biceps roll away from the face so that the neck can hang. And then one more time. If you're a puppy, you can just roll yourself forward, rock your hands back. One more time, plank shape. So push the hands down, pull the chest forward, push the toes into the ground, squeeze the thighs to the bone. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Last time, send the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Or if you want to be in child's pose, you're welcome to. I will say this, that for a lot of people, child's pose is a more relaxing shape. I can't breathe as easily in it. So for me, down dog or puppy is going to be more relaxing so that I can catch my breath. And if that's you, don't feel like you're like weird if you don't like child's pose as much. Just don't do it. It's fine. You can even always just sit back and up. And then from there, everybody bring your knees around. And just find hands and knees. So hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips a little bit. We're just going to sort of rock a little side to side. Seeing how your wrists feel. You might even want to make little circles around them in one direction and circles in the other. If at any point your wrists start bothering you and you can come into a fist instead, you can. Or just take a look. Everybody go ahead and take a look. Sit back, see what your wrists, if you just pull your fingers back towards your forearms, how far can they go? And if the answer is like here, and then you try to put your wrist right under your arm, you're causing your wrist to go into a place that it doesn't naturally go, and that might hurt. So just take your hands, see what the angle they are naturally is, and then put the hands there so that that same angle stays there. So that might mean they are slightly in front of the shoulders. One alignment cue is not always the right alignment cue for everyone. So, but we are really just trying to be able to push from the hands. So we're not slumping, pushing away. Pull the crown of the head forward. We'll just roll through a couple rounds of cat-cow. Everybody in this Gentle Yoga class has been here for a while, so I don't think I need to talk to you too much about cat-cow, but we're arching the back and rounding the back. And if you're pairing that with movement, you might want to try inhale and pairing that with breath. Inhaling forward and exhaling round. Now I said to push away from the shoulders. If you want to slump a little bit and see what that would feel like in cat-cow, you can. Maybe you add a little bit of circle between the shoulder blades. Great. And then we'll return to neutral. And from here, we're going to walk both of our hands so everybody has their hands slightly in front of the shoulders and push the hands down. Take your right hand to your left shoulder. And then start to pull your chest forward and open up to the right. You want to stop when you start to feel that shoulder coming towards the midline. That's where you stop. Today, my twist is not going to be very open, and that's okay. Then you're going to bring your right arm up if it feels all right on the shoulder. And exhale, pull the right arm under the left. Threading the needle. Tuck your chin slightly so you can look up and through your armpit toward the ceiling. If your head doesn't make it to the ground, make the ground come to your head by putting a pillow, a blanket, a block, something under that. And then you're trying to push down to that left arm so that the shoulders stack more over each other. They're not going to be perfect. That's just the direction they're going in. And then check out your hips. So usually one hip kind of jumps out to the side. And the way to notice that is the weight in the knees. So if the weight in the knees is uneven, see if maybe shifting your hips to get the weight even in the knees can happen. It's very hard for us to conceptualize where our hips are in space, but it's pretty easy to feel our knees right now. Taking a few breaths here. I'm coming in and out of it because it's hard to talk, which also means it's hard to breathe. So instead of making it just so that your belly or just so your rib cage or just so the front of your body moves, you have to let your diaphragm press into the back body and expand your back and sides. And then on your next inhale, push that left hand down, lift yourself up, and unwind out of the shape. Right hand comes down, push the right hand down, take the left hand to the right shoulder. That's just to watch it as you pull your chest forward and open up to the left. And then maybe you take your left arm up, only if the right shoulder's not doing this for you. You don't want it to creep. It's staying in place so that this is coming from your spine. Take that left shoulder under the right arm, looking up toward the ceiling. Usually for me, it's through my armpit. Sometimes it might be in front of somebody's arm, depending on your body. And remember that you can bring a blanket or a block under your head. Again, you can check in with your knees. Breathing deeply. And then inhale, push that right hand down, lift the left arm up, return to center. Great. So from here, we're gonna make our way into a 90-90 shape, and there's one way you can do it. If it doesn't work out for you, we don't have to do it that way, we can try something else. But from hands and knees, take your right knee towards your right hand, and then start to just sit off onto that right hip. And then if you can, you're going to try to get the right shin to be parallel with the front of your mat. And then your back shin is going to be somewhat parallel with the side of the mat. So you're in 90 degrees in the front, 90 degrees in the back. If that hurts your knees, or if it's extremely painful in your hip or back, you can try changing the angle of the feet. And you can also try leaning off to the side. We're trying to sit up as tall as possible without leaning off to the side, without causing pain. It might feel better to put a blanket or something under this back knee. This knee can come up as much as it wants, this front knee. But we're going to try to sit up tall. And you're going to try to take your hips so that they both face forward, which means they're not facing off to the side, like between your knee and foot. They're facing forward. And then let your back hip relax. So like your butt relax toward the floor. And we'll sit here for a second. And we're just letting ourselves feel some passive stretch on this back leg. It probably feels like something near your joint. And that's okay, as long as there's no pain. So sort of determining what that difference between pain and maybe a little discomfort is. Pain is searing, stabbing, tingly, sour. If you can really pinpoint where you're feeling it, it might be too much into the pain region. Whereas if it feels a little bit broader, like I can feel it inside my hip, but it kind of feels like this much inside my hip, not this much inside my hip. And that's okay. That's probably just your fascia stretching. Fascia is this continuous membrane through the body that connects muscles to bone, connects muscles to muscles, wraps around muscles, wraps around joints. It's all throughout our body. And when it's stressed and tight and holding on to stress, it can really have a pretty adverse reaction throughout the body. It also helps hydrate the body and gives nutrients. So we stretch it out a little bit, we squeeze it like a little sponge, and sometimes it's going to pull on a few things. That's okay. From here, we're going to actually take this into a forward fold. So now this front leg becomes the focus of the shape. If this bothers your knee, a couple things you can try. You can bring that foot in a little bit and see if that feels better. You could try folding more towards the foot. You could try folding more away from the leg. Finding something that feels good to you. If you've done other yoga classes, this is the most like a pigeon, which you might see. We're not so worried about our hips being square or even, though. It's okay if this left hip's up a little bit. If you want to play with that, sort of rocking and seeing what would feel better, you can. You could rest your head on something if you have a block nearby. If you don't feel anything, I do suggest moving toward the foot. You might feel something different. All right. So we've been kind of passive in these shapes, and I would like to start engaging a little bit. So we'll start to come up. Your hands can kind of be in front of you, or maybe off to the side slightly, or one up here. But you're going to use your hands. You're going to pull your chest forward, so you're upright, but you're not perfectly upright, and you're also not folded over your leg, kind of in this in-between space. Focus is going to be on this back leg. I got to move this block out of my way because I know I'm going to kick it. All right. Nothing might happen. I just want to warn you. Your leg might not move, but the muscles that engage it will. The leg itself might be too heavy. It might not move, and that's okay. We're going to push our hands down, pull our chest forward. You're thinking about moving this leg as one unit. So it's not just your knee. It's not just your ankle. You're going to try to move the whole thing. We're going to pulse it 5 times. So we're going to try to pick up that leg like 1, 2, cramp, 3, 4, 5. Lift it up. Pull the knee in towards the chest. You're going to rock around so your soles of your feet match each other. Like I said, nothing might have happened. You might have been like, well, that is just not going to happen, but I feel it. That's great. You can roll off your hip a little bit and just bring that leg around however feels comfortable to you. Whew. You might be feeling something in that outer butt area. That's a very technical anatomy term. Just shake it out a little bit. You might even give it a little wiggle. That's all right. We're going to sit up nice and tall. Our feet aren't as close as they could possibly be to us. They're not as far away as they could possibly be from us. They're kind of right there in the middle. And then we'll fold forward. Letting the head relax. Maybe again, if it bothers you to let your head relax, if that bothers your neck, maybe you have a prop or a couple props to rest your head on. Keeping the head engaged is always an option too. Sort of pulling the chin in, lengthening through the neck. Inhale out of the Spada Konasana, forward fold. Take your right hand to your right knee or beside you if that would feel better than pushing on your leg. Take your left hand to your left knee. I'm going to take my right hand to my ground. I think that's just going to feel better on my leg. Lift up through the chest, and you're going to open yourself over to the right. So you're leaning slightly to the right, and opening your chest to the left. So it's this little twist and a stretch. If you're like, that feels good, I want to feel more. Maybe you take your elbow to the knee, or the ground, and push. And then inhale back to center. And we're switching sides. You never knew that sitting down this long would be this hard. All right, so we're gonna switch sides. You don't have to do anything fancy. Just take your right leg back, your left leg forward. For you, you can adjust yourself if it's easier. I'm gonna stay so you can see me a little bit better. So your left shin would be parallel to the front of your mat, and the right shin would be parallel to the side of the mat. So 2 90-degree angles in the legs. Unless that hurts your knees or your back or causes any pain, in which case you adjust your angles, or you put something under your knee, or you lean off to the side a little bit more. Fine. We're all gonna try to sit up as much as we can without any pain. And then we're gonna let our right hip rest toward the ground, but it's also still facing forward. So we're not rolling off to the right. Your chest doesn't face the right, the hips don't face the right. They face forward, but your hip sinks. And then we'll just stay here for a little bit. Then you kind of know where you're going. You can always also have a block beside you if that helps push you up higher. I have freakishly long arms, so I've never needed a block there, but you might need one. So we're trying to feel this back hip, just a reminder. And we're not really doing much to do that, except just trying to sit up tall and relax. Very few activities in our life ask us to passively find internal rotation, which is what's happening in this back leg. But then we are asked to find it kind of unknowingly, actively. If you're walking and you're walking in a way that for most of our bodies keeps us safe, you're really trying to not let your legs pronate too much, go out to the side too much. You want to have a flat foot. That requires a little bit of internal rotation. Being able to arch the foot requires a little bit of internal rotation. I know these things because I don't have a lot of internal rotation, or I haven't really pushed myself to have a lot of it. It can cause back problems, low back problems, hip problems. If you're constantly only turning your legs out, the low back can be affected. And so it's good to explore all the ways your legs can move. From here, we're going to go forward. So this leg's an external rotation. This is normally what we think about when we think like, oh, my hips are tight or my low back needs to get stretched. A lot of times this is what people will prescribe, and sometimes it's the right prescription, but sometimes this is. So it's just good to try both and see what works for you. And then again, your knee bothers you, maybe you go out to the side a little bit. Maybe you go towards the foot. Maybe you change the angle of the knee so it's smaller. And we just hang out here for a moment, breathing. You might want to do one of those body scans, just noticing what you can notice, seeing if maybe there's something you can release. Sometimes just bringing that bit of attention to the body helps release it. And then sitting up, kind of finding this half seated up, so you're not all the way back like we started, but you're not folded forward. For me, that means my hands are slightly in front of me. On this side, it actually might feel better for me to have one hand behind my foot, just so I can push down into the arms. Use them. And then start to lift that back leg up. This one might not work as well. All the way. 2, 3. Trying not to flop forward like I just did. 4. Trying to stay still. 5. And then lift up. Oh, bring it forward. And around. Soles of the feet touch. Again, you can just make it here, however you want to. Soles of the feet touching. We're going to come into tortoise shape. So before we were doing a butterfly or a Baddha Konasana, tortoise is arms under the legs. We've been doing this a lot lately. It's been one of my favorite things lately, so that's why. Palms face up, forearms face up, and then you'll fold. And you might not fold very far, and that's okay. And your hands might not get very far in your legs, and that's okay. Some people, I prefer my hands wider, so away from each other. Some people prefer to grab onto their feet. And I just want you to find which one you like. This, I think, for a lot of people feels a lot different in their shoulders, and that's why a lot of people like this one. You look like a little turtle. I also usually add this pose to my Thanksgiving classes because I also think you look like a turkey. And then on an inhale, you're going to come up, unwind the arms, bring the hands behind you, bring the feet to the ground, knees up towards the ceiling, and windshield wiper back and forth. Just letting the hips roll a little side to side. Great job. So we're going to come to our backs. Feet on the floor, knees up towards the ceiling. I'm going to check our time really fast. So come onto your backs, knees up towards the ceiling, feet on the floor, and grab a block or a blanket. I will say if you have SI joint problems like I do, and we just did all that hip stuff that might make your SI a little bit unstable, don't use a block, use something softer and thinner, like a blanket that maybe is rolled up 1 or 2 times. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably don't have them. If you have a lot of low back pain near your tailbone, that might be the case. I don't know, I don't know your bodies. But if you know you have SI joints problems, don't use a block. Use a blanket. If you don't know that, you want to err on the side of caution, use a blanket. If you're like, I'm good, you can use a block. We're going to lay on our back. And either taking the block on the lowest or medium setting or the blanket, you're going to pull your tailbone forward towards your toes. Push your feet down to the ground. Let the back of the head rest onto the ground and grow up toward the top of the mat. Push your feet down a little bit more, tuck your tailbone a little bit more, and push down to lift the hips up. And then you can scoot that block under the sacrum. And the sacrum is a triangle-shaped space above your tailbone, but below the arch of the low back. So it's not where your low back arches, it's kind of a flat spot. So that should sit on top of the block at either height. If you, like me, have some SI joint problems, you want to make it softer, you can do that. You can also take the blanket or the block and put it a little closer to your butt rather than your ribs. And sometimes that helps. I'm going to use a blanket today. And then just let your hips rest. And that could give you a little bit of pressure into your shoulders, which might be a good thing. You want to give yourself a little massage. You can move your arms around, make it go up, out to the side. I like to call this snow angels. Or maybe they just move into a goalpost place. Or maybe you give yourself a hug and release. Sort of finding a little bit of pressure, a little bit of massage in the upper back, the shoulders. And then if you're feeling a lot of sensation and or this just feels really good, you don't have any interest in moving anywhere else with this, you can say. If you want to feel a little bit more of a back bend, you can start to bring your right knee in towards your chest and hold on to that right knee with your right hand. That might be a ton of sensation. You stay there if that's the case. Or you can start to walk your left leg forward, extending that left leg out. It doesn't have to be straight, but I will ask you to keep the heel on the ground, even if that means the knee is deeply bent, because that doesn't put too much weight on the hip flexor. So then you're getting the stretch, I'll show you on this side, in the in the psoas, the space right here between the hip bones that goes down, that sort of helps you stabilize as you walk. Getting a stretch there. You might even be feeling more in your rib cage. You might even feel a bigger back bend depending on how high your hips are. And then from there, start to take that left leg back in. Let your right foot come down to meet it. Pull your left knee in towards your chest. Extend your right leg forward, maybe. If you didn't need that, you don't need to take it. That's just an option. The leg doesn't have to be straight. I'm not very far off the ground right now, so it's pretty easy for me to straighten my leg. But if I was up higher, it might not be so easy. And then bring that right leg back in. Set the left foot down. And from here, you can kind of decide, do you want to stay up like this for a couple extra breaths? You can. Maybe giving yourself just a little rest. Maybe you just have a blanket or a pillow or something under your hips and you want to stay there. If your hips are really high off the ground, I would suggest taking the block lower and maybe extending both legs so that you can get a big stretch in the front of the body. If you're like me and you're just on top of a blanket, this might feel so good that you want to stay here for Shavasana. If you're up on a block, it's probably a little too much sensation. So I would suggest not staying here for Shavasana. We're not quite there yet. I just wanted to tell you that you could stay here, you could ignore me talking for a few minutes. So if that is you and you want to ignore me, you can. If you're ready to take whatever's underneath your hips from under your hips, you're going to bend your knees, lift your hips up, roll it out, and then roll your spine super slowly down onto the ground. You can keep your knees bent. You can even give yourself a little windshield wiper maybe. In these final moments of class, if you'd like to bend the knees and come into some sort of twist, you could. Eventually, you're making your way to a comfortable resting place. So you can prop yourself up however you'd like, maybe a blanket under a part of the body, maybe a blanket under the head, knees. You are home, so you could throw your legs up on a couch or a chair, if that would feel good to you. You can really set yourself up however you'd like. And for today especially, we're going to take a longer Shavasana to do a little bit of a meditative practice. So making sure you're physically comfortable is very important. So just make sure that you're so physically comfortable that your body doesn't really distract you from your mind. And then once you've found that place, allow yourself to truly settle down. And then we're going to kind of start exactly where, stop exactly where we started. So bring your attention to your feet. You could feel the air on the skin, the weight of the feet sinking down into whatever's holding them up. Or maybe they're up in the air because they're on a couch. Just bringing your attention to your feet. Something that doesn't move when you breathe. It is something you are fairly familiar with. You're probably pretty familiar with your feet, so they're not going to be surprising to you, although things could surprise you. Just being able to sort of pay attention to your feet. And if for some reason your feet just are not connecting with you, pay attention to your hands instead. And then all I'm going to ask is that you gently continue paying attention to your feet or your hands. And that you use that like a perch for your mind. So just like a little bird or a big bird, a bird, your mind perches on your feet or whatever you're paying attention to. But the way minds work is they don't stay in one place. And if they did, that would be probably not so good for us. So just like a bird, your mind is allowed to fly away from that perch. And when your mind is moving, you might, like a bird, observe what is going on below you. So that could just be your thoughts, your feelings sort of rolling by you. You don't really stay on them. You just notice them moving by. You're flying over them. Very little judgment. But then like a bird, your mind might want to settle on something. And it might naturally settle on something. And when it does, you have a couple options. First, you can stay there. And you can think about that, or you can stay focused on that. Maybe that becomes your new perch. Maybe it's a sound or a feeling or some sort of train of thought. That can become your meditation. Or you can decide, no, I don't really want to stay here. I'll move on. And again, you can watch the thoughts moving below you. You can find another perch where you always have the ability to come home. Back to your hands, back to your feet, back to whatever it is that you started paying attention to. And so in this way, we don't get frustrated, we don't get mad with ourselves because our mind wandered. Instead, we celebrate the fact that our brain works the way it should. And we don't think of things as distractions, we just think of them as other opportunities to continue meditating. And if something is causing us stress or anxiety, we always have the ability to leave it and return to something else. Return home to the feet, the hands, the breath, whatever you decide you want to start your focus on. So I invite you to practice this for several minutes. So what you may notice if you haven't already is that eventually you stop observing. Your body just is, your mind just is, you're not really aware of it. Your breath is involuntary. And that is Shavasana. That is the rest that you get to experience at the end of asana. And that rest is transformative. It allows your body to heal itself, allows you to take a little break so that you can re-enter the world refreshed and renewed. And from here, you could start to come out of Shavasana, or because you are at home and you want to stay there, you are welcome to. When you're ready, you just begin to invite subtle movement into the fingers and toes, letting that movement move up through the arms and legs, letting the head and neck move, deepening the breath. Bringing the knees in, taking as long as you need to make your way to a side and then to a comfortable seated place. So again, you can also stay in Shavasana and ignore me. If you've made your way to a comfortable seated place, you can bring your hands to your heart center. Thanking yourself for being here today. Sending gratitude towards your classmates for sharing this space with you. Sending gratitude towards the cultures and the teachers from which this practice came. As I thank each of you for sharing your practice with me. Dhanyavad. Thank you. Thank you all. You might still be in Shavasana, so it's really quiet.